Okay, 12 o'clock. Hey guys, thank you for joining us today. We have a lot to cover. First, some housekeeping. Let's see, sorry, I've got. There's an economic survey. It's been posted on the KREIA Facebook page. I have a link to it right here, and I'm going to do this at the end if I remember to do it. So that way, fill this out. I think we're probably going to use the data for Thursday. But it might be for the meeting after. But it would be awesome if you could fill out sooner than later, just to give us an idea on how you guys are being affected in your rentals and your personal life and all that stuff. So it's going to be a good resource, and the more data we have, the better it's going to be. And then, I don't know if that's the right link. Also, we have our KREIA main meeting on Thursday, and it's going to be awesome. John Jones is spending like a ton of time putting it together, and same with Lauren, and it's going to be a really great, I don't know how long it's going to be, but there's going to be a ton of information, a ton of content. It's all going to be facts. I'm sure there'll be a little bit of opinions in there, but more like positivity. I think everything's going to be fine. It's just a strange time. And thank you for joining us. First of all, anything that Raphael or I say is strictly our own opinion, not necessarily anybody else's. But it probably is everyone's opinion, if I had to guess. Raphael is a commercial real estate agent, and he's with the Grisanti Group. And the Grisantis are a legendary Louisville family that have been around for years and years. Used to own Ferd Grisanti's. They're just a staple of the J-Town, Fern Creek area. Tell them about yourself, Raphael. We have more to talk about you, but you introduce yourself first.
Yeah. So, as Rob said, I'm in commercial real estate. I actually am not a Grisanti, I am affiliated with the Grisanti Group. Just to give you a little bit of background on myself, I've been in the business now for almost 10 months. Before I was in software consulting, so I was half consultant, half developer, and I worked on projects in Washington, D.C. I worked in projects in Puerto Rico, and then I worked on a project here for the Department of the Treasury for Louisville to replace their financial software system. So I came from a technical background, which kind of gave me a leg up when it came to analyzing different properties, from financial analysis and that sort of stuff. And I've also always been very outgoing, and I thought that being in the commercial real estate business in particular would be something that kind of utilized my skill set. What I've done over the last 10 months is I've worked on various different deals as it pertains to retail, office. I'm working with some multifamily investors that we're trying to identify properties for them right now. We haven't closed on a property yet, but that's something I'm doing as well. And I'm learning a lot about industrial properties as well through Nick. Nick's kind of the guru when it comes to industrial. So he's also been a great mentor to kind of provide me with insight on what to look for to different properties. So it's kind of a little bit of background myself. I'm not from Louisville. I moved here about 2.5 years ago. I'm actually half Italian, half Puerto Rican. I was born in Italy, and then moved around Europe until I was about 14, went to Arizona State University and traveled around for work and came here.
So worldly.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick actually was who I partnered with on my first commercial deal, which we sold land for Randy Hollis for the church. And that went really smoothly, really great. And they sold it, and now it's being developed. Yeah, it's awesome. Also, guys, he's not tooting his horn enough. He also is a very established writer. You're on book number 6, right?
5, yeah.
5.
I write books for young professionals, in particular related to personal development, professional development. I've written 4 books. They're called the Millennium Playbook series. I'm also in the process of writing another book on commercial real estate, which will document the different things that I'm learning as I'm going along in the process of brokering and investing, because I plan on investing in commercial real estate as well, and potentially development long term. But that's, I agree, Rob.
Well, dude, I mean, that's so awesome. And the thing is that's right now, I mean, your demographic that you're dealing with is a little bit older, but I mean, once those start getting delivered for Christmas and everything, I think you're going to build a huge following. And I think what you're teaching them is awesome. And I honestly, awesome. I'm so proud to know you. I think it's so cool. And guys, that's another way to create, I know you're not getting rich off of these things yet, but it's a really great way to create passive income. Raphael just hosted a Zoom call with Rachel Richardson, who wrote a book, and in it she documents 28 different ways to create passive income. And writing a book has been taking her to a lot of different places. So I don't know. It's pretty cool. You don't really meet a lot of people that have the ambition and motivation that Raphael does. So he's killing it. So Raphael, the idea is we don't want this call to be all doom and gloom, but if you had to rank things, I would say Airbnb's hit the hardest right now. But once things are back to normal, it's going to have the best recovery time. I think you'll have a great recovery. But commercial real estate, it's going to be hit probably the worst, honestly. Like, what are you and Paul, like, what are you guys forecasting? Where are you getting your information from? Where are you reading? What are you thinking?
So, I mean, I would say in the immediate, banks have been kind of frozen as it pertains to purchases. They're not really focused on issuing new loans right now. If they did have a loan in the pipeline, they're willing to continue it. But other than that, they've been really focusing on trying to get these stimulus
PPPs.
Exactly. They're trying to get everything funded so that people can just survive. And in the short to immediate term, I think that doesn't necessarily bode well for the transaction market. But from a leasing perspective, I mean, I haven't really had too much trouble as of yet as it pertains to people who are still interested in getting leases, getting into long-term leases. The only thing that's kind of been people have been hesitant about is the length of the lease term. Now that there is unpredictability, some people are maybe that were initially looking to get a 5-year lease. Maybe now they're saying, well, we really don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what our cash flows are going to look like over the next 6 months to 18 months or however long. So maybe we want to get in at a lower or shorter lease term in order to just be able to navigate quickly if need be. As far as the office market is concerned, I'm interested to see how that bounces back after this event that we've seen. I mean, obviously everyone's doing Zoom nowadays, just being able to manage that. And I'm interested to see what the productivity looks like once you go back to work and do analyze to see what the productivity has been like over the last few months, to see if that's maybe a viable option long term, and that may or may not inadvertently affect the office market as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, because I went to I went with Nick actually, the 2020 Economic Outlook. And right now, I mean, even before all this, we had a little surplus of office space.
Oh, sure.
Now, I don't know. I mean, and the thing that stinks is Louisville's like number 2 for independent restaurants in the country, and restaurants are getting hit the hardest. And there's so much good food out there, it's hard to support everyone. And so we're going to lose a lot of restaurants, which, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity here. I mean, have you seen anything creative that people are doing, like on those people that were getting 5-year leases originally that are moving to 3? Are you guys requiring more down payment on those, or what are people looking to do?
So I can just give you an example of something that I'm working on right now with one of my listings. I had an office listing over in the south side of Louisville, and obviously since this has been happening, financing for different people has dried up a little bit. So I'm actually going to be showing the property this week to someone who is interested in doing a kind of a seller finance deal. So he's willing to put down a certain amount of money and then have my client carry it over the next couple of years with a consummation within 3 years, essentially. So we're going to try to see if we can work something like that out. And I'm confident that that's probably going to end up happening, especially if banks are hit hard by this particular event. We'll probably start seeing some restrictions on what deals they can and can't do. Maybe they'll require a larger down payment, which kind of eliminates someone's opportunity to be able to purchase a property, in which case the seller, in order to achieve the highest possible price, may be more than willing to offer seller financing. So that you generally see that happen in downturns, is that seller financing goes up because credit is not as available. So,
I mean, even if you have the money, I mean, if you can get seller financing, I mean, you should do it because you're not holding that debt on paper. And there's a lot of value in that. So learning your scripts and how to convince people to get seller financing could be a really valuable tool right now. So office space, we're going to have an issue. One thing that Louisville was just killing it with, and you kind of talked about Nick doing so great, is that industrial space. We've got Amazon, we've got U.S. Postal Service. And do you know anything more about this? I've been told that there's this triad of like Columbus, Cincinnati, and Louisville, and sorry guys, I muted it. Columbus, Cincinnati, Louisville, where they have this they need more storage space, industrial space to handle all the surplus stuff for USPS and Amazon. Have you heard anything about this triad or whatever?
I haven't necessarily heard about that, but I have been reading about how the industrial properties have been affected by this. And in fact, a lot of the industrial sector has been booming through this, and especially logistics, any type of trucking that are tied to necessary businesses like grocers and even machinery that's required within this pandemic. I mean, they are doing extremely well. And it's been interesting to see that how resilient they've been through this entire process. And as you know, Louisville, I mean, is kind of an industrial hub. You know, we have Bluegrass Industrial Park. I mean, it's doing extremely well. There's incentives for people to move to the Bluegrass Industrial Park, so it offers opportunities for people who want to start businesses in that area. And I mean, yeah, Louisville itself is strategically located within 60. I think there was a statistic. I think 58% of the population within a day's drive, something along those lines.
I read something about we're within 6 hours of 60% of continental USA, which is pretty cool. I mean, in one random fact is we have some of the best seafood in the country because USPS. You know, would never think that. So I don't know. It's pretty cool. And industrial, like, I don't know, when you think about it, you kind of think scary a little bit, right? Because machines are phasing out so many jobs. I mean, is that a concern of yours for the future of Louisville or what?
I mean, you're still going to need space in order to operate out of. If you own industrial property, I don't think you're going to be drastically affected by that. But if you're in the industrial sector and you're working as an employee, maybe that is something you need to have concern. But I mean, Amazon's still leasing space by the boatload. I think they had 28 million square feet of space or something like that, an absurd amount. I mean, when I was in Phoenix, I went to Arizona State and I toured their 1 million square foot facility down there, and it was just impressive.
Nuts.
I mean, now, and I think as machinery improves, as technology improves, I mean, a lot of those jobs are going to be automated away, but that space is going to remain. You're still going to need that space in order to operate out of. And if you're an owner of that property, I mean, you're going to benefit.
Yeah, I think who was it? John Hoagland just bought some storage space and renovated a little bit, and he raised it by like $1 per square foot or something and made a killing on it. I mean, it's if you're going to look into commercial, like storage space would be something that'd be great, and you can even do it up 71, 75 or whatever, going towards Cincinnati. I mean, there's a lot of spots that you can buy pretty cheap. It's interesting. It's really cool. And then you posted an article recently about maybe potentially, I mean, it's all preliminary, but maybe getting the Tesla trucks here, which would make a lot of sense, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Tesla, I think initially they're looking at Tennessee for their tax incentives. And that's one of the things I think has been kind of hurting our chances just because the income tax in Tennessee, there's none. So that may be an incentive for them. And I'm sure they're doing something else from a tax perspective in order to incentivize them to come. But from a logistical standpoint, I don't see why that wouldn't be a good opportunity for them. They're going to be close to a lot of major cities. We have the industrial backbone here in Louisville to support something like that. And I mean, we have Ford, we have various other automakers in the area that justify proof of concept. So I don't see why it wouldn't be a good opportunity for them to come in and maximize their space, you know?
Well, you know, if you ever wanted to stop doing commercial real estate, you could always be a lobbyist for us, Raphael. I always thought that'd be
my personality. That'd be tough.
I think if I wasn't doing real estate, I think that's what I would do. I think being a lobbyist and bringing jobs, I think that'd be fun. You'd feel good every day.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be depressing though because it doesn't always go the way you want it. Okay, I'm going through my questions list. What commercial projects are you seeing around town that you think will affect residential and commercial real estate values? So an example, like the waterfront expanding in the West End, or the national track and field coming into the West End, or the Shawnee Park Library Learning Center. I mean, do you see anything else on the horizon that you think will affect property values anywhere around Louisville or Southern Indiana even?
I mean, I can't point to one in particular, but I just think that the growing trend of multifamily development in the area is definitely going to impact property values and probably going to impact as well rent charged, especially the higher end developments, the Class A's that you've seen popping around town. That's another thing that's kind of interesting to me is I'd like to see how sustainable that is from continuing to increase rents as much as they have in those sectors. because at the end of the day, I mean, wages overall have remained relatively stagnant, but rents in some of these areas, in particular Nulu and various other places in that corridor, have jumped up a lot. I mean, I used to live in 310 at Nulu, and I had two bath, and they were charging, I think, $1,100 when I first moved in, and now they've jumped up to almost 15. So, and that was just in a 2-year period. So
lucrative.
Lucrative. It can be, but then again, if you're the investor buying that property and you buy the property under the assumption that you can raise those rents to those rates in order to justify you paying as much as you did, that could be a problem. So I'm interested, and that's another thing with loan covenants, for example, right? So you get a property that now is tied to these metrics by the bank. So the bank's saying, okay, you have to maintain these different covenants over the course of your loan in order for us to not pull the loan. And so if you can't meet those covenants, then you're going to get in trouble. So,
well, and I was reading the Bigger Pockets. They do like a market research thing every week. And they were saying that the people that are getting hit the hardest are those A and B rentals, because people are having a hard time justifying spending that money, and they're not upgrading to those higher properties. So like, right now I should probably sit. And so, and that's true in residential too. Like, we were thinking about moving up to a $300,000 house. Interest rates were fairly low, and then all this happened. And my buddy Brandon Jones, who's a realtor with Sotheby's, we were talking about how the trickle effect, and I'm sure this was true in commercial too. It's the people that are like, you have service industry people that are eating into their down payment for the smaller properties. Well, the people that want to move from that 150 to 300, they're having less of demand, and then it's going to trickle up. So if you want to move out of an $800 or $1 million property, I mean, like, it's going to be really difficult. I mean, even like $500,000. I think if you're under 3, you're probably in pretty good shape, but the prices aren't the same, But I mean, like commercial, I mean, the office space and everything, I mean, that's going to be interesting. And I wonder if it's going to become more mixed use, or I don't know what they're going to do to make that, space viable for other industries, or because that's going to drop rates for everyone, because it's going to be so competitive.
Yeah, I mean, you may be able to repurpose. So that's another thing some investors are doing is for, just as an example, let's say that you had a Dollar General that all of a sudden their lease ran out and they decided to move somewhere else. So now you're just stuck with a warehouse with maybe an acre plot of land. Well, what you can do is you can repurpose it into a retail shopping center. So now you build it out into 3 or 4 retail buildings or spaces, and then you just lease out those individual lots. And if the traffic counts are good, if it's in a good retail corridor, I mean, you still be able to charge decent rents. So there are opportunities to repurpose property in order to achieve a higher value. As far as office goes, I mean, I think it's really dependent on where it's located. If it's an office in the middle of really nowhere that doesn't really hold a lot of retail value, then it's gonna be kind of tough, So there may be other opportunities for you to maybe rezone it and maybe convert it into multifamily, for example. But that's also something you got to do the analysis on.
Yeah, and we had Bob Gurman on here before, and he talked about how he tried to repurpose an apartment complex to condos, and then he went back from condos to apartment complex. I mean, you're going to see people doing a lot of different things, trying to see what works and what sticks. But it's cool. I mean, honestly, if commercial space goes down, office space, it might, if we can incentivize it, I mean, you might be able to see what happened in Cleveland and Detroit, where we can incentivize more of these tech companies come in. Right now, Louisville is great with data analysis, and we have a lot of data analysis companies. They're doing a lot of stuff on energy. Energy is the second largest commodity in the world, whereas data is number 1. So you have a good mix right there. So if we can get some more tech, what was it? El Toro, is making the big change, and my buddy Sean Howard's there. And he said it's kind of sad. Like, we're going to end up moving offices from our current one to the new complex, which is in Nulu. He's like, we don't really get to send off the old one or say goodbye because all this stuff's going on. I'm sure that it's going to be an easier move without everybody on the roads. But yeah, I mean, we're very fortunate. Louisville, this is from not this most recent economic outlook, but the year before, we're really behind in our sister cities. Like Indianapolis, Columbus, I don't think Nashville. Well, it might have been Nashville too. We're like in the 39th percentile for tech jobs. So we really need to do a lot to incentivize that kind of stuff.
It's surprising to me too, because we do have a lot of strong technical students and opportunities in the area. So for example, I volunteer for my fraternity. I was in SIGEP in college, and I'm volunteering at the University of Louisville on the alumni board for SIGEP. And the majority of our brothers are engineers, right? The Speed School, phenomenal engineering school. They have co-op programs where you would essentially get immersed in various different programs and different businesses around sometimes the country. I mean, some of these kids are going to other parts of the country in order to get some of these immersion programs. So they're coming out with a lot of real world experience. So you would think you would want to maintain that talent in the city. So I feel like there's got to be a partnership between the city, the University of Louisville, and potential companies coming in and saying, look, we have the talent pool here. We have the University of Louisville. Even a lot of larger universities like Purdue, Indiana, and various other places are pretty close by. It's not unrealistic. Even Nashville's not that far. So Vanderbilt, there's various other universities in the area. So I don't see why there aren't more programs out there to say, look, I mean, we're willing to attract, even if it's smaller to mid-sized companies that have the potential to grow. I mean, those are opportunities that we should be able to bring to the city.
Well, we're finding out that right now with all this going on that you can do things kind of anywhere. Like I was in Belize with Harry building houses and I sold 3 houses. Like, it's crazy. I'm a realtor. That's a weird thing. So, I mean, one thing that could happen is, the cost of living everywhere, like people, okay. So we have this theory, I guess we talked about it on, I don't know, like 3 calls ago, where like the people that are from Kentucky that are in New York City, like all this, it's scary in New York, it's scary in LA, it's scary everywhere, but it's also scary in Chicago. And you're kind of like sardines close to everybody, and you're paying a lot of money to be a sardine and close to everybody. So I have a feeling that we're going to see people migrating back to Kentucky. They're still going to want to be in the bigger cities like Lexington and Louisville. So I think we could get a big influx of talent. And if we could incentivize some of these companies to even work remotely from Louisville, gosh, it'd be awesome for us. And I don't know, but I think Louisville's in really great shape. I mean, like, man, I think we're so fortunate to live in this economy, even with all this stuff going on, and live in Louisville for it. I mean, just the output of money that's coming into Louisville since this coronavirus. I mean, I talked to so many out-of-state people. There's so much money coming in here because they're tired of losing $200,000 overnight in their property and equity, and they're not cash flowing, so they're taking a hit financially, like a major hit. And so, I don't know. We're very fortunate. I don't know. Let's see. Do you have? Okay. Nick and I were talking about this. I think it's important. Guys, there's 4 Chick-fil-A's moving into Louisville. I only know of 2 of them. So one of them is going in by St. X, and we think it's going – Nick and I were talking about it, Nick and Paul and I, and we think it's going to be by where Norton Health is over there by like St. X. And then there's another one going in somewhere, I think, on Blankenbaker. And so I don't know where the other 2 are, but it's going to be really good for the economy. I think we need a couple more Chipotle's too. Is there anything else that you're hearing in the commercial world sector, or anything that you think is coming up, coming in, or interesting?
I mean, I couldn't tell you exactly which one and maybe I'm not as attuned to those particular national brands that are coming in, just because of my experience level in the business. But I would say that we have the potential, in particular from a restaurant perspective. I mean, like you said, we're kind of a foodie city. So, I mean, we do have an affinity to value different brands coming into the area. So I think that, I mean, I love Chick-fil-A too. And I know Chick-fil-A is super strict and picky about where they go. So they wouldn't pick all these different areas within Louisville if they didn't think it would be financially viable for them, because they're one of the pickiest franchises out there.
Mm-hmm. And you're only allowed to owning like 3 of them, I think, or something.
I don't even know if you could do that. I think it's 1 or 2. But you may be right. Maybe 3 is the limit. But yeah, they really don't like people to own more than that. But then again, you also think about it, they're also making quite a bit of money from each individual one as well. So
honestly, I just started thinking, and I'm so ADD, but I'm wondering how these private schools are going to be affected, because people are going to have less money to donate, less money to put their kids into these schools. I mean, how hard are they going to get hit? Like,
I guess a big thing is it depends on how prepared they were from a infrastructure perspective to handle online schooling. Mm-hmm. I don't know how effective or how much infrastructure they created in order to have online capabilities at some of these private universities. I mean, they really haven't had to deal with anything like this before, so they maybe should be playing catch up right now. But yeah, you're right. A lot of these private universities or private institutions require some sort of donations as well. But I think that will be affected.
Have you reached out to like St. X or Trinity? I feel like right now, if you did a webinar, It would make them look like they're doing some effort, and it wouldn't cost them any money. It would be a good way to get you in front of people. I feel like that's just like a match made in heaven. Just have you reached out to either of the big high schools?
I haven't reached out to the high schools yet, but I have done talks at various universities. I did one at Indiana Southeast or Southwest, the one just across the bridge. I've done that. I've done a ton at University of Louisville. I've spoken one briefly at Bellarmine. So I've spoken at universities primarily, but I really haven't reached out to high schools.
If anybody has a connect at Trinity or St. X, I have a St. X connect. I'll try to put you in contact with them because I think connecting is just so important. And
sure.
Rachel Richardson, I hadn't even thought about her for like 5 years because I used to work with her. And I already referred her out for another podcast for her to go go on and talk. So I don't know. We have nothing but time and there's not enough content out there. Does anybody have any questions about commercial real estate in Louisville? Raphael's a budding expert. So if you have any questions, I'm confident you can answer or you can find someone who knows the answer.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're waiting for any kind of questions. Another thing that you do that's pretty interesting is that you're house hacking. Can you tell people how that's working in your life?
Oh, yeah. So back in November of 2018, I purchased a fourplex in Old Louisville. We renovated 2 of the units, and I moved into one and rented out the other ones. When I purchased the property, it was already fully leased, but I was able to negotiate with one of the tenants that their lease was coming up, and they wanted to move anyway. So I was pretty much worked a deal out with them saying, look, we'll give you until this time in order to move out. And it worked out pretty seamlessly. But yeah, since March of 2019, we've been living here, and the total mortgage that I'm paying is about $1,750, and the total rents that I'm pulling in is about $1,850. So it's pretty much breaking even.
That's going to set you up with so much success down the road. Because you're able to save that money and invest it and do. I don't know. I think there's a lot of
my girlfriend and I are actually going to be doing it again, hopefully closer to the middle of this year, probably. We're looking to try to do it again with a duplex.
Really? What part of town are you looking for?
It's up to her, really. I'm not picky. I could live anywhere. Not really, but it's definitely more on her.
Well, if anybody on here watching has one, let us know. We'll hook you up with Raphael. I guess we don't really have any questions. Commercial is more of a niche thing, and we've got one question from Philip. What's the going rate per foot for a warehouse currently?
It depends on where you're at. It depends on the type of property. So if it's a Class A, Class B, Class C, if you're talking Class A, really nice and industrial, the Bluegrass Industrial Park, it could be anywhere between 5 and 8 square foot, triple net. But it just depends. If you could be in an area where the property's not a very nice property, and it'd be a lot less. And on the size matters too. So if it's a huge warehouse, the price per square foot will be lower as a result because you're going to be paying a ton of money per year. So it's kind of a hard question to answer. A strip center, Class A. Well, I would say price per square foot's maybe a little bit different. I would say from a cap rate perspective, if you're going to look at a solid cap rate for a strip center that's Class A, anywhere between a 6 and 7, maybe a little bit less than 6 if it's a really nice one. But yeah, that's kind of the range that we're seeing as far as investment grade strip centers.
All right, guys, a little bit of housekeeping. Don't forget to fill out the economic survey. I posted a link up top. It's on the KREIA Facebook page. If you're not a member of the KREIA Facebook page, make sure you add yourself. The search function on that is incredible. I use it all the time. You should too. It's one of the best resources out there. Let's see. If you are interested in running for a board position or want to nominate someone to run for a board position, do it. We're going to probably most likely have an absentee vote in May. I think I read in May. So if you're interested, guys, anytime you can create an excuse to hang out with the smartest people in the room, you should do it. I get to ask Frank Miller questions all the time. And then let's see what else. We're not having a see you at noon on Wednesday. We're having a main meeting on Thursday. And that's going to be awesome. And people are putting in a lot of work and time into this. So you should get real excited because I don't know, we're going to learn a ton. I feel like I'm sandbagging, holding back any of the information I've read because I really want everyone to hear it. And then there'll be a replay of that too. And we're using the national REIA, so we can have up to 1,000 people. So we're hoping, to have the 730 members. let's see, on Friday, we're going to have the See You at Noon follow-up Friday. So it's going to be El Presidente himself, Chris McCarty, and then we're going to have John Jones, President-elect, and they're going to be answering any kind of questions that don't get answered on Thursday. It should be casual, have a drink, have some coffee, whatever you like. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Thank you guys so much for coming, Raphael. I appreciate it. I'm sure I'll see you soon. Check out his most recent meeting with Rachel. It was awesome. I'm sure you have that posted somewhere.
I'm working on trying to get it. So we had some issues with the conversion. So I'm working with Zoom to get it resolved. So I'll have that up soon.
It was awesome. I really enjoyed it. I got to work at it while I was doing it. Thank you guys again. I'll talk to you all later. Have a great day. See you at noon on Friday.